Alright, here we go. There's about 5 mils of fuel in that right there. We're going to pour that in. It's not very much, but it should be enough to get the engine started, which is all I care about. Alright, here's the difference. Looks like Zero found something that worked. I've seen the video, but I don't necessarily like using the torch, because if I have a backfire, the torch is a torch and it'll it'll cut the carburetor in half. But what I noticed was the reason on my testbed engine I had that interesting piped in manifold intake system was I found that hydrogen's dissipation rate being as high as it is, the hydrogen will actually race out of the intake into the normal air faster than the engine can suck it in. Hydrogen travels very quickly in air. I'd have to do the calculations to find out how many miles per hour, but you'd actually be blown away. I mean, I hate to use such a crude reference, but when somebody breaks wind, it doesn't take it more than a second to get to your nose and you're standing 10 feet away. Well, hydrogen travels much faster than that. It's much smaller. So you actually have to direct it into the intake as such. Or use some kind of system that will trap the hydrogen in the intake manifold, which is what I would prefer to do than using a nozzle, but trap the hydrogen into the intake manifold and prevent it from escaping. Some kind of a one-way valve after or at the very beginning of the intake would be the best option to maintain a certain air velocity going into the intake. That way the hydrogen couldn't defeat that air velocity and get out. But that being the case, we're going to go ahead and turn this on. We're going to get our production moving. Okay, just so you guys can see, with that torch tip, it's a 0.03. We're running about a steady 1 psi. I'll go ahead and block it. Let it build up a couple psi. Alright, there's 2. And then I'll let it run back down. You can see it settles back down around 1, about a half a psi to 1 psi. So we're not running a pressurized system. This is an on-demand system. Let's see now, time to get her started. All right. Okay, now it shouldn't take very long to run out of 5 mils of fuel. Even at this low of an RPM. But I'm going to let this thing run as long as we have video. We've got 3 minutes 29 seconds right now. I'm going to let it run the whole time. I will check the temperature on the manifold as best as I can. I'll show you a very, very interesting effect that's going on with this engine as far as the spark and that. I guarantee you a few people that know anything about RF will be very interested in what's going on. And I will check the voltage and amperage also. You can hear it running out of the gasoline fuel. When I hit the 9-minute 50-second mark, I will stop the tape and immediately start it back up and put a second video to get as continuous of a run as possible. If I could load a 20-minute video, I would. That's the hydrogen right there. Now that's about the same RPM that it runs at that setting with just the gasoline. But with the hydrogen and gasoline, it runs at a higher RPM. That's what you were listening to. That's about what its idle speed would be if the engine wasn't set up and designed to run at full throttle from start position. I'm not producing enough gas to run it at full throttle. I'm barely running enough gas to run it at a decent idle, and I wish I had my infrared tach so I could show you the time or the RPM. But it is what it is. This is about the best I can do for now until I get another one of those tachs. I'll do a flow test so you can see how much hydrogen is being produced, so we can start working on some numbers. And I still believe that we're losing a good portion of hydrogen racing out of the intake. Without some means to really capture it, or a pulsed injection system, I think it's going to be very difficult. There is an alternative, there is an option that encapsulates it, and that I will be working towards in the future. And it will take care of all the problems of ever possibly losing the hydrogen at all. But it won't be this. It'll be a similar engine, but not this setup. It's new. Let's put it that way. So we're at about 7 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pop the camera off the stand, and we're going to try and get some recordings for some measurements for you guys. This is only 10.6 amps, 113.9 volts. You can see the production right there. All right. There's a little engine going. Let's get the temperature. This is what I was referring to earlier. I can't get too close. If I do, the RF coming off the spark plug interferes with my meter. That's about as close as I can get. Any closer, I haven't tried over here, okay. It seems like it's most places on the actual engine itself. So, let me try and get the hottest spot. Now, I had already run this engine. It was preheated. I'd run it for a good 15 minutes. All right, 8 minutes 30 seconds. Okay, here's the exhaust. And even if I get too close to the exhaust, it does the same thing. Should probably richen the mixture up. Alright, that was controlling the throttle. Closing the throttle richens it because it restricts the amount of normal air coming in. I'm almost out of time. But that's it. I'll come back in a second.